God bless you, dear students. So, here we are going to begin with the second part of our story, Pip and the Convict. So, let's see with the remaining paragraphs. It was sunset when the party entered the marshes, and the searchers opened out into a wide line. All of a sudden, they stopped when they heard a confused shouting coming from a distance. They ran toward it, cocking their guns, and Joe, with Pip on his shoulder, followed. The shouts became louder. All at once, they came to a ditch, the convict whom Pip had fed, and the convict with a bruised cheek were in it fighting fiercely. Okay, so now it was sunset when they entered the marshes, and suddenly they heard some kind of sound that was coming from a distance, and they ran towards that direction and raised the firing lever of the gun to make it ready for firing. Now Joe with Pip also followed them, and as they reached closer, the shouts became louder. When they came close to a ditch, what they found there, they saw that the convict to whom Pip gave food and the other convict with a bruised cheek, they both were fighting. The soldiers seized and handcuffed them both. The man with the bruised cheek was pale and trembling, while the other boasted that he had dragged the man he hated back to captivity, even though it cost him his own freedom. So, when the soldiers caught and handcuffed them, and the man who was having injury mark on his cheek was frightened, and he was also trembling, but the other one just spoke too proudly that he pulled the man to whom he hated to captivity, although it cost him his own freedom. Okay, now the next paragraph. While the soldiers were preparing to take their prisoners back, Pip's convict saw the boy standing there with Joe. Pip hoped that the convict would not think that he had brought the soldiers. He felt reassured when the convict told the officer in everyone's hearing that the previous night he had broken into a house where a blacksmith lived near a church and had stolen a meat pie. Pip was very relieved that Joe heard it. So, when these soldiers were taking the prisoners back, at that time the convict to whom Pip fed, he just saw this little boy standing there with Joe. And then this boy was consoling himself by hoping that the convict would not think that Pip had brought the soldiers. So this boy just felt less worried when the convict told the officer in front of everyone that he had got into blacksmith's house and had stolen a meat pie the previous night. After it, Pip felt relaxed because he is feeling here that Joe heard all about it. Okay. Now, the next paragraph. Joe and Pip returned home to recount their adventure, but neither then nor ever afterward did Pip find the courage to tell Joe the part he had played. He did not want Joe to think him worse than he really was. Pip never forgot the adventure in the churchyard, but as time went on, the memory of it grew dimmer. Okay, then Joe and Pip, they both just written after their adventure. But this little boy never had found the courage to tell anything to Joe. And what all such happened related with this incident, because Pip never wanted that Joe might think him wrong. But Pip never forgot this adventure in the churchyard, and as time went on, so the memory also just grew dimmer. Okay, now the next. One evening, Mrs. Joe sent Pip to the village inn with a message. Pip found Joe sitting with a stranger, a secretive looking man who held his head on one side and kept one eye shut all the time, as if he were taking aim with a gun. This man, when he heard Pip's name, looked at him with a curious wink, and when no one but Pip was looking, he took out of his pocket the very file Pip had stolen from Joe's forge and stirred his drink. So now what happened that one evening, Pip's elder sister, she sent him to the village inn with a message. Village inn means it is a casual dining restaurant chain in the United States. Okay, so when Pip went there, he found that Joe is sitting with a stranger and who is looking with some hidden intentions, and who is sitting there by holding his head and keeping one eye shut, and the way he was sitting, it just looked like as he was taking aim with a gun. And this man, when he heard Pip's name, then he was very interested to know about him, and he looked Pip by closing and opening his eye quickly, and only when Pip was looking at him, he took the same file from his pocket which Pip had stolen from Joe's forge, and with that file this man stirred his drink. Okay, now next paragraph. Immediately Pip knew that the man was a friend of the convict he had aided. When Pip left the inn, the stranger called him back and gave him a shilling wrapped in a piece of paper. Shilling is here a former unit of British currency. So then Pip soon just knew that the man is a convict's friend to whom Pip supported. And when Pip left from there, this man called him back and he gave him a shilling, which was wrapped in a piece of paper. Okay. Now, when he got home, Mrs. Joe, who took the prize away from him, discovered that the piece of paper was in reality 2 bank notes, and both Joe and she wondered at it. By the time Joe tried to find the stranger to return his money, he had already left the inn. Okay, so when Pip came back to home, his elder sister found that the piece of paper was nothing but 2 bank notes. So Joe and Mrs. Joe, they both wondered at it, and after that Joe tried to find out that stranger just to return his money, but the stranger already left that inn, so Joe couldn't find him anymore. Okay, now so the identity of the man always remained a mystery to all but Pip, who knew in his heart that the convict was taking this means to repay him. So mystery, it is a thing that cannot be understood or explained, and repay is here to give something to somebody in return for help. So here, except Pip, the identity of this man remained a mystery that could not be understood, and only Pip knew the reason in his heart, that why the convict used this means to give something as a prize in return for help or kindness, which Pip gave him. Okay, so now this story ends here. And children, now to get the questions and answers, just please go through the video's description box and just keep completing your work and study well, because by the next month your second unit test will begin. Okay, so our second unit test first chapter is completed here, and now in the next video we will meet with the next portion of our second unit test, that will be the poem. Okay, Count the Day Lost. So till then, just all the best.